Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Words of the Wise. I'm here today with Chief Colwell with the City of Fort Wright Police in Kentucky, serving 23 years in law enforcement, happily married with 3 children, and he's earned the FBI Leda Trilogy Award. Welcome to the show, Chief Colwell.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We were just talking offline. You and your wife have been together since 1996. A very long
Yes,
time.
this July 4th, it'll be 30 years.
That's amazing.
Married, married since 2011, but we've been together for quite some time.
Yes, and you have three children together.
Yeah.
How do you manage and how do you balance your work life and your career to have almost 30
Well,
years of a successful
I can
marriage?
I can tell you it's much harder when you have like middle of the day schedule and night schedules and stuff like that. We lived it. It's very difficult. But since I've been promoted up through the police department, it's enabled my wife to be a stay-at-home mom. So that helps a lot with being pulled in different directions, taking kids to different sporting events and stuff like that. So she's, for the most part, freed up throughout the days to do those things for us. And it takes a lot of stress off of both of us. Because I know, 10 plus years ago, we didn't have that. We were managing babysitters and running all over the place. And it can get very stressful on the individual and the marriage together.
Right, right. And you started in corrections. So can you talk to us a little bit about your journey from corrections
Yeah.
to policing and up to
Yeah.
chief?
I honestly, growing up, I didn't want to be a police officer. I thought I was going to be in the major leagues, baseball. So that was kind of my thing growing up. And then, college years come around and then it's like, wow, you got to get a job. So what do I do? So I started out working at the airport in Cincinnati, which is actually in Kentucky for those that don't know. And I worked on the ramp. I was the guy with the little earmuffs and the sticks out there. I did that. I loved it. But that was like 2001. And that's when the pilot strike started. And I was like, man, I really need something that's kind of stable. Um, and I just got the idea, you know what, I'll go try and work at a jail. And I ended up at the Kenton County Jail in 2003, which is in Covington, Kentucky, which is the furthest point north in Kentucky. It's really a suburb of Cincinnati. And it's the third largest jail in the state of Kentucky. And I spent 9 years there, went up through the ranks there, gradually getting more experience and leadership roles. And then 2012, I found myself about 29 years old. I was the fourth from the top in command. I was the captain of operations, and the people above me weren't planning on going anywhere. And I was like, now what? Now what do I do? And I decided to put some applications in for a police department, and City of Fort Wright hired me. And it was a bit of a big transition from corrections to policing. But that's kind of my journey. I came here in 2012 and gradually worked my way through the ranks here and was actually offered the chief's position back in 2019. And I turned it down because I hadn't reached my retirement eligibility yet. And I was once told by somebody, don't take that type of job, an appointed job, until you don't need it. So I turned it down, and I was blessed to have another chief come in who mentored me for a few years, and then he stepped aside, and then I took over in 2014, or I'm sorry, 2024, and it's been good so far. We have a really great crew here. The officers are outstanding, um, but essentially that's kind of my journey from that. Um, I'll go back on the transition though, because that's really kind of important. I think when you're in a jail, you got to learn to deal with people on potentially their most difficult day of their life. And it's like that with policing too. But the one caveat, the difference is when somebody comes into a jail, well, I'll start with this. When you're on the road as a police officer and people are not listening, they're not complying, you can always say, you're kind of pushing it, I'm going to take you to jail. And then they might dial it down a bit. When you're in the jail, what are you going to say? I'll take you to jail again? They're already there. So it forces you to learn how to talk to people, to deal with people, and actually how to figure people out pretty quickly. Um, I used to joke when I was at the jail that I was an expert people watcher, just because you're always looking at, physical cues and how people, their posture, their stance, and it just makes you a better read of an individual. And so when I came out to the road and did policing, it's different in Kentucky. You don't like work in a jail for a couple of years and then you just go to the road. It's because it's completely separate. Um, but once I made it to a police department, dealing with people in very difficult situations it just flowed very easily because you're placed in a very hostile environment in those jails. And it honestly, I mean, I don't know what kind of toll it's taken on me yet. I'm sure I'll figure it out at some point later in life. Um, but it just makes you almost an expert on just being able to empathize with people in their situation and talk to them like a human being. And that goes a very long way with people if they just see you as an individual and you're able to communicate with them where you almost take off this uniform, psychologically, and you just come at them like you're just another person trying to help. So that's really been huge in my career, coming from the jail. And I would honestly, for anybody looking to get into law enforcement, I would encourage them to go to the jail and work. I know you said your father was in corrections, and it's a very tough thing to do. It's not for everybody. I always joke that when I do retire from this, I might go back to the jail. I'm a little crazy, but it's just kind of my thing. I really enjoyed it. And policing's been very fruitful as well for me. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about what I went through for the last 20 years.
Yeah, how do you think being in the jail prepared you mentally for being out in the streets?
Well, it was so you think being from Kentucky that it's all farm life and stuff like that, a bunch of horses, and believe it or not, I actually had horses growing up,
So did I.
and so yeah, I wasn't too far. I was probably 15 miles from downtown Cincinnati. But I grew up in that environment. So when I go to a downtown jail and start working, just it was a huge culture shock for me because I had never been exposed to any of that. I didn't even know where the city was except for I knew how to get to a Cincinnati Reds game. That's literally was my only experience with downtown Cincinnati and Covington. And just being in the environment and seeing how people live and just the way they talk, and it's a whole other culture. And then you get into outside of a jail, and then there's subcultures within the jail. And I could go on for days on this, but just the people alone, it almost, like I said earlier on, it forced me to adapt. It forced my mind to figure out a way to communicate with these people to survive on my end. Because I'm locked up out, I always made a comment that to some of the inmates, I've done more time than you because of the amount of time I've spent in the jail. 9 years is a long time to work behind those concrete walls, and just. But back to the original comment, just being in there and dealing with those people, and not having other options like I'll take you to jail. You have to figure out a solution, and it almost makes you very resourceful. You develop a bunch of different types of hats. I'm sure others have said it. You become a psychiatrist. You become a little bit of knowledge about medical stuff. In some ways, you have to teach them how to adult. Sometimes you got to give them advice, uh, and then you got to protect them, believe it or not. So, being their protector as well. So then they look at you for everything because they can't do anything for themselves in there. So it was just a big shock for me to have to go through all that. And then after 9 years, it was a journey that I'll never forget. I mean, it was great to me.
You
I
said
learned a lot.
you said something earlier. You said that a lot of times when someone's coming in, it's one of the worst days of their life, or they're at a very low in their life, a low point,
Yeah,
and you have to be able to be prepared to talk to them about that. And as you
correct.
said, like
And
you're human.
yeah, and if you actually approach every individual, that, like we call it, the grill, that's where the officers will drop off the prisoners, the booking area, right? And as long as you have that in your mind, as this person's being walked up by an officer that, okay, this person might be dealing with something that they've never dealt with. This could possibly be the worst day in their life. Um, how to you have to figure you got to put those gloves on and be able to assist them through this process, but also be the enforcer if they act out. So it's you got to be able to adapt and pivot in an instant, and it's difficult. But like I said before, the more you do it, the longer you do it. As long as you carry this compassion with you for other people and their well-being, then that'll help you navigate them through that difficult time.
You mentioned you were baseball. Baseball was your sport.
It was,
Yeah.
yes.
So, in baseball, you have to prepare, you have to warm up. Same thing as an officer. We compare this a lot to a professional elite athlete because you have to be in good shape and both probably in the prison and outside on the streets to deal with a lot of your day to day. So, how do you prepare for that and how do you keep up with that?
Well, it's you really just have to keep up with it. That's the main thing. I mean, if because it goes twofold. It's not just your physical well-being, it's your mental well-being as well. And as long as you got to give yourself time for play. You gotta be able to step away from the job and keep those hobbies up because I'm a victim of it. When I was towards the middle of my career, and if my wife was in here, she'd jump right in and cut me off because she knows it's true. But I spent so much time dedicated to my career that I lost hobbies, like things that I like to do for fun. And it really takes a while for somebody, at least it was for me, to actually, I can't remember what happened, but I remember sitting back going, man, I haven't played golf in a while, or I haven't kayaked, and I haven't hiked. I used to do all those things on a regular basis, and it's been years. And I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. I got to figure out a way to make sure that I can keep those things that make me happy mentally and physically in play. I can't put them on the sidelines anymore. I've got to get those back in my life. And, in my position now, that's very important for me to not only recognize when I need those things, but the officers. So they can also be just like me, where they're so concentrated on their job and trying to do so well that their selves suffer, their families suffer, and it takes real leaders and good people in leadership positions to keep that high on our priority list to make sure that we're recognizing when an officer could be kind of going off track. And we've got to be prepared to jump in and make sure we reel them in and make sure that they have enough time to do those things. And sometimes it's just a conversation
Yeah,
with them to kind of let them know, hey, it's okay to let the job go for a minute and concentrate on yourself. So we encourage a lot of our officers to do those things and get out, take your personal time off, and get away. It's important.
very important. And you now manage an agency of 13 people. Is that right?
Yeah, 13. So it was, and that I'll go back to the
Yeah.
correction side. When
Yeah.
I was there, when I was the captain, I had over 100 underneath of me. Um, and it was good. It was difficult. It was challenging, but coming here, being in charge of that and then coming here as a patrol officer, it was great. I mean, all I had to do was I had to worry about what I was going to eat for lunch and make sure that, I put those blinders on at the end of my shift and get home on time. But that's since changed moving up in the ranks here. But yeah, we got 13 people, and the quality of life, and I say it like that, it's a workplace, right? It's a police department, but the quality of life here is just great. It is amazing. There's many other agencies and officers around us that see it, and part of that is something that I mentioned to you guys in some of the emails we exchanged is just a mindset that I took on several years ago. When I came here, this place was the chief had been here for 30 years in that position. The sergeants had been here forever. It didn't look like anybody was going anywhere. And in a small agency, you can't have that. You've got to have upward mobility. You've got to shake it up a little bit and have basically a succession plan so that officers have a career goal lined out for them. We have that now. It's taken us a while. But the other thing that we had when I came here is we had camps, right? It's a small agency, but you had officers on one side that were against certain supervisors and all this stuff, and it's toxic. It can really make a place terrible. Um, since all of those people have filtered out over the years, I started thinking, instead of looking at somebody that has all the skill set and all this huge resume with all these accolades and bring them in and then hope that they get along with everybody. My big thing when I was at the jail was training. So I trained the officer or the deputies there a lot, and that was my big thing for several years. So I looked at myself and I said, why don't I bring people in that I know are going to get along with everybody, and they're going to help improve the culture because of their personality and who they are. And then let's put the other half of that on the leadership staff to train them how we want them. And we've been doing it that way. So, and I've turned away officers with great resumes just because I don't think that person's really going to fit in here. And I've taken somebody that had zero police experience and they're actually in the academy now because I know that person will get along with everybody here and they'll fit right in like a puzzle piece and will carry on and the culture is not affected because the amount of time that we spend away from our families, it's important that you have a family like atmosphere um, with as little possible tension. And so for the last probably going on 9 years, 8, 9 years now, it's been great here. We've only had two people leave this place in 8 years, which is unheard of for this area. Um, and one person, it was somebody that we assisted with them going to the FBI, so they made their career better. And then another person was just a guy that had been a cop for a while, and he just was, you know what, I'm just going to go try the private sector, and he's still one of my best friends. But anybody that's left here, we've encouraged them to do better. And I actually had an officer a few years ago that was complaining to somebody else about they wanted to be in like a drug strike force, or they wanted to be a canine cop, which we don't have those things. So I sat down with them and had a conversation and said, what other agencies around us would you like to go? I know people in Cincinnati. I know people in Covington, a couple of the other areas around here. I can make some calls for you and get you to those agencies where they have those things that you want to do in your career. So it's all about making them, helping them make the better choices for them, for their well-being, because I don't want somebody here if they're not happy with what they're doing. I want to make them better. So that kind of philosophy that we've had for several years has really paid itself back to us in dividends. I mean, everybody here is really happy, makes my job easier, and I get to spend more time not dealing with all these problems and actually talking to the officers and getting to know them and their families. Um, that's important as well, is just having that connection. The first thing I say to an officer if I haven't seen them all weekend when I come in on a Monday is, "How was your weekend?" I just talk to them as Jonathan to whoever. It's just me to them. And if you really take that approach and take the collar brass off and just sit down and chat with them as a friend, a person, a confidant, um, and then you only have to put this uniform on and use your rank when something goes down really bad. So I keep that in my back pocket. It's always there. But for the most part, I try and just be the leader that knows them in a personal aspect as much as I do in a professional one.
Your days can already be so hard going out in the streets. Don't make it any harder when they're coming in.
Exactly. I 100% agree. I don't want anybody to work here that wakes up on a Monday morning and goes, "Oh man, I got to go back to work." Because nobody wants to do that. I'm sure you've had a job at some point in your life where you're like, "I really got to go back and do this again." We don't want that at all. We want to make sure that everybody is, you know what? Yeah, I don't get to be with my family for a few hours today, but I'm going to go somewhere where, you know, I can enjoy myself. I can have fun. I can do the job. I can do as much of the job as I want or just enough to get through the day and just, you know, have fun. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
You get to be with people that you like and do something
Correct.
that you enjoy doing. That's good for the entire community.
Yeah, and it's something that I want to try and keep in focus all the time, at least while I'm here, is I don't want anybody to have to come to work and go, man, I got to work with this person. So, the personalities are important too. When we make our schedules, me and the captain who does the schedules, we sit down every year and we match personalities. We don't just say, well, this person's been on this shift for a while. We need to move them with them. Well, if we think there might be a little conflict there or a difference in personalities, we're going to make adjustments for that. We want people to like their partner that they work with because they're stuck with them for a year. So that's very important to make sure that they're going to get along with the person that they're working with day in and day out for 365 days.
Yeah. And I like what you said about the resume. It's not just about the resume. It's about the
Correct.
personality. I'm going to make a sports analogy too, because it goes back
Go
like when
for it.
you're looking at a player, it's not all about their stats. It's going to go into how coachable are they.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
I
and
I'm
most
see that it's very similar.
yeah, it is very similar. That's a great analogy. Because they could have a great personality, but if they don't have the capability of being, like you said, coached or trained or taught to come up to our standards, then I might have to go a different direction. But um, for the most part, yeah, I mean that's very important. I mean, just looking at personality alone is huge, and we don't do like personality tests and stuff like that. Actually, my captain that works here with me, him and I worked at the jail together as well. And as I was going up through the ranks there, he was the one right behind me. And when I came here and I was here for a couple of years, I just called him. We had an opening. I said, "You need to get over here, put an app in." So he's come here with me. And just like the jail, he's followed me up the chain here too as well. And it's really good because him and I are almost the same person. We get mistaked for brothers all the time. So not only just physically, but how we treat each other and we treat the officers and we deal with things. We're very, very similar, which I think is very good to have. You've got to have some consistency among the leadership. Um, everybody's got to be on the same page all the time. So that's very important. And that's good for the officers because you don't want, I've lived it where you have one sergeant supervisor you come in and they're great to work with. And then the other one, you don't know which one of them you're going to get. So we've tried to manage that as best we can to where all of those supervisors here are on the same page. Our personalities are all very similar. Our philosophies are all in line with each other. So, I can't have one supervisor that wants to go one direction while I'm trying to stay in this direction. We all have to be going in the same point, like a couple of train tracks. I mean, we all got to go to the same place. And in order for that to happen, everybody's got to be in the right seat on the bus at the right time.
Right. And you mentioned consistency. What about accountability? How are you holding everyone accountable?
Um, that's a good question. So basically, I mean, we have all types of different processes in check, to where, we don't have like, I'll tell you a quick story. So when I first came here, and I hope my mayor doesn't see this because he might get upset, but when I
Gonna
first
be
came
good.
here, when I first came here, we had goals, right? So, and you've heard of these. Um, Other people call them quotas. We had goals. We had to do a certain amount of different things every month, and we had to meet those numbers. And when there was an officer that was here at the time, this was, 10 plus years ago, and he used to be a really active officer, but when they implemented these goals, he just did the minimum. You know what I mean? He just found out exactly what he needed to do to get by and not get in trouble, and he just did that. And I saw that, not only I didn't like, nobody liked him. Um, but when I got put into a position where I could get rid of him, that was the very first thing that I did. I was like, we are not doing that anymore. We're not doing, we do yearly performance evaluations, but we're not doing monthly stats of, because like back to a sports analogy, what it comes into, it's like a batting average, right? This guy had this many traffic stops last month, so I want to beat them. Well, I don't want that. I want quality. I don't want quantity. You know, and one of the things that I always thought was, if you make a traffic stop on a single mom with a car seat in the back and she's got a cracked windshield, am I gonna write her a ticket? No, no, I'm not, because she's already struggling. And why would I do that? Why not just pull her over and educate her and just say, hey, I just want to let you know this windshield's cracked. I know you can see it. It's right in front of your face. but it's illegal to have that. So contact your insurance company in Kentucky. They, and just educate them on. Most people don't realize that in Kentucky, as long as you have insurance, they'll replace your windshield for free.
Yeah, it's the same in
So
Michigan too. Yeah.
yeah, just
Mhm.
educate people and not worry about the numbers because that just to me um, that philosophy is no good anywhere. I don't think there's a place for that in policing anywhere in the country. And so I sort of said all that to say this: we don't have those in place anymore, but we do have really good supervisors on the road, sergeants, and they do an excellent job of motivating the shift. They set the pace, they set the tone. Um, there might be a crazy snowy day where it's freezing cold, and this is what I did as a sergeant. I'd bring in a pot of chili, and we might just take our calls that day and stay out of the snow and ice and just worry about responding to calls to help people. And or it's a nice day out, let's get out and show some activity and patrol the neighborhoods and get out and play some basketball with some kids. Or we got a baseball park close by, and there's a couple of officers that stop by and play ball with them all the time. So I would rather see the officers do things like that and educate the community with traffic stops and stuff rather than write citations and things like that. And we do a great job here. And I have no worries about anybody um, not being up to any standard or anything like that. They all get out and do their job, and I think the reason they do that is because they're happy.
Yeah. And what I would just want to follow up with that. What keeps you going? What's your why in doing this every single day?
Um, it's real weird because for me, like I said before, I didn't want to be a police officer when I was growing up.
Mhm.
And it's actually funny. I wasn't a bad kid in high school, but I wasn't exactly a great kid. Uh, I'll run into people that I haven't seen since high school, and they literally, it's happened more than once. They go, "You do what now?"
That's funny.
What keeps me going is just because I lived through bad leadership. I lived through bad managers, which we don't ever want to have managers in this line of work. Um, and I don't ever want anybody else that works with me, not for me, with me, to ever experience that. And I'm not saying I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread because I'm not. I've still got a lot to learn. The leadership that works with me has a lot to learn still, and we try and do that with continuing education every year. But I get my feedback from the officers. So what motivates me is when I see that they're happy every day, and we can cut up and laugh, and they tell me about their kids and their personal lives and growing up, and I can see that nobody's really frustrated with having to be at work, and that's all the reassurance I need that things are going great. And it's not a lack of um, accountability, like you said before. It's not the leadership just sitting back. I truly believe it's us doing what we're meant to do and keeping this place, all the behind the scenes stuff, all the budget things, things that the officers aren't really privy to. All those things are getting done. But on top of that, we're also providing an environment for them and the equipment and everything that they need so that they can show up to work and, like I said, just be happy. And just that feedback on a daily basis makes me makes me feel good about the work we're doing here. And I'm not going to be that chief that when I came here that had been in this spot for 30 years. I've already made that very clear that I will come in. I will do my best to make it a little better than the way I got it. And then I'm going to gracefully step aside and go find something else to do. Um, and I think that's important for smaller agencies to have a succession plan, which we have one in place. And so my job right now for the next couple of years, however many years I got left to do this, is to prepare the captain that's below me to be ready to take over my position. And I can't step away without knowing that he is ready to go. And then his job right now is to train the sergeants below him to take over his spot. So we have a lot of really good things going on. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. And just keeping that process going is important to me because I probably am not going to do this for another 2 or 3 years. Not that I don't love it, I really do, but I want to make sure that the people that are working with me in leadership have an opportunity, have the same opportunity that I've had. to take the helm and run this place and do a great job and actually do better than I did. I want them to succeed and make things better than the way I left it because that's what I'm working towards to do.
Yeah. And we're all working towards retirement and the longevity. Like, what would you say leads to the longevity in the career?
Uh, I don't know. It's you can't, like most people will just say fly under the radar, and don't get in trouble and stuff like that. But I mean, you got to enjoy what you're doing. Or, I've seen people come in and do this job, especially in the last several years. We're kind of taught we're only going to get 3 to 5 years out of a new officer because that's just how the younger working class is now. Um, but you got to come into this job and you got to find something that motivates you and something you got to have a mission somewhere. And one thing that really helped me is I had some great mentors early on in my career was just having a career goal path, having a path and planning it out. I mean, it's never the timeline's never going to work out how you want it to, but at least as long as you carve out a way and what you ultimately want to do, and then work for that every day. And that I think that would help people a lot. Like we have one in the academy now, and I've already sat down. Like he hasn't even graduated the academy yet, and I've already had several conversations with him about his career path and what he wants to do with this job and his future here, or at another agency if he finds somewhere else that he wants to go that has different opportunities. Regardless, he's got him and I have had those conversations already. He already knows has an idea of where he wants to be in a few years and 10 years and he's going to continue to work for that. And if the leadership here does the job that I think that they'll do, they will help him get there.
Mm.
And I think that those types of advice and those types of mentors for the younger officers is very important. I had that. I lucked out. Not everybody gets that, but I had somebody in my ear my entire career, um, giving me advice and telling me what I need to do next and move on. And I want to make sure that I'm able to pass that on to the other officers as well.
I agree. And I think it's so important to have the goal, to have the why. Like, why are you doing
Yeah,
this? What's your
yeah, give
purpose?
it some purpose.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's exactly, I mean, I started on this journey about 6, 7 years ago, and I was working with more of the vulnerable population. So it's
Hmm.
interesting how I've progressed through multiple mentors, and now I'm on the first responder side of things. So I've worked
Yeah,
with both sides of the coin. So and just like
interesting.
knowing where you want to go and how you want to impact lives of people or whatever your goal is. Everybody should have a goal and mentors, I think.
Sure, and that's true with any career and
Yeah.
any type of job. I mean, as long
Mhm.
as you have some sort of goal in mind, obviously with a sports background,
Mhm.
I'm always fairly competitive with everything. Everything's a race to me,
Yeah.
but
It makes it fun. It adds some
it
level of fun
does.
to it.
It does. You got
Yeah.
to have some friendly competition on
Yes.
certain things. But just having that experience in my career, I don't know where I would be if I didn't have those mentors to coach me along and motivate me when I wasn't so motivated. Um, that's kind of where I see like, wow, if I didn't have that, where I would I be where I'm at right now? Probably not. Most likely not. And I just want to make sure that every officer that gets to work with that I get to work with, I'll rephrase that I get to work with, has the same opportunities that I have, and I'll do the best that I can to emulate that.
I think it's hard for a lot of people to seek out mentors, maybe, and ask for help, ask some of the hard questions, or admit maybe, oh, I made this mistake. How do I correct it?
I agree with that because it would be awkward for anybody. I'm more of a type B personality. And it's not very, that's pretty rare in policing. You don't really get a lot of type A personalities. So it's hard for me to ask anybody for anything.
Mhm.
And luckily, I didn't have to ask for mentorship. Um, I had two great mentors, and they just came to me, and they just decided that I was going to be their little project. And so I guess to answer or to acknowledge what you just said, I believe it's on the mentor. So if you're in a leadership position and you have the knowledge and the experience that can be passed on to somebody and potentially help their career, it's on you to find somebody that maybe needs it, maybe doesn't, but at least offer it. And, you know, take them on as like I said before, like I was their little project, and just say, you know what, I think I can make this person a great leader someday, and just stick with them and motivate them, push them, and that's what good leaders need to do, um, to keep the officers, on task for their career goals, their tracks.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think looking back on your career, if you knowing now what you know, what do you wish you knew?
I
Was
wish I would have taken the advice that was given to me on day one, which was, uh, when I started at the jail, my colonel that hired me sat me down and he said, 20 years will be here in a blink of an eye. Because that's our hazardous duty retirement in Kentucky is 20 years, and this is my 23rd. And he said, 20 years will be here in a blink of an eye. Make sure you're prepared for retirement. I did not. And it came in a blink of an eye. So I think, starting this career out, I've several years ago, I started preparing a little better. But had I started earlier with some different accounts and stuff like that, because, the hazardous duty retirement is good, but it's not the best thing in the world. So, um, I would say they need to prepare for retirement because it comes quick, and just map out their career, figure out their goals early on, so that you're not wandering in the forest the first 5 or 6 years. Get started early with your goals, and I think that's important too. Is don't just show up and do the job. Don't be the one that comes and knows the standard and just hits the standard and that's all you do. Go above. Be the one that shows up to work and says, "All right, I'm here. What more can I do for you?" And those are the ones that stand out. Those are the ones that the leaderships are going to want to mentor. So I think if they do that early on in their career, they'll be good to go.
where or how would they start? What would you, just to add to that? Like
Um,
for financial resources, maybe their agency doesn't provide that. What would you recommend?
just any type of retirement account that you can, 401k, something on the side or a deferred comp. Those are great. That's what most of the people do, around here. Just get a little bit of, and it's very hard. When I started at the jail, I was making like $11 an hour. That's 2003. So I guess that was a while back. But, you know, when you're living in an apartment and you've got rent and insurance and you got to keep the water and electric on, I mean, you're like, man, I really could have used that $25 that I had going in that account. So it's hard at the beginning of your career, especially if you're living on your own. But I think I could have, if I look back, I think I could have, managed to put money aside early on. And I know what it would feel like. It'd be like, man, why am I doing this now? 20 years is so far away, but it is not. It goes by so fast, especially in a fast-paced career like this. I mean, it snuck up on me before I knew it.
Yeah, goes by fast.
Oh, it does.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.